Hi guys, and welcome back to yet another review. This time around I bring you the Jialai CARAT, and I bring you also the DDHifi Janus 3, the 2023 edition. The Jialai CARAT is an IEM priced at around $70. I got this particular one from HiFiGo, while the Janus is priced at around 120, just over $120. And I also got this particular unit from HiFiGo. So obviously they are two IEMs which are focusing on two different segments, while the CARAT is going to go up against such IEMs as, for example, the Aria 2 or the 500 LM from SIMGOT. The Janus 3 is going to go up against the likes of, for example, the XINHS, the T5S. On the top there, I've got four other IEMs which do not represent my complete choice of IEMs in terms of single DDs. I've got the BQ EYZ, the Wind. I've got next to it the Format, the EA 1000 Format from SIMGOT. Next to that the Tanschem Origin. Next to that the Panon Vortex. These are basically the ones that I usually go to the most. There's another one or two IEMs which I also very much like at that price bracket of over $200, namely the Duno Falcon Ultra. I think it's also a fantastic IEM. But I selected these for specific reason, let's put it that way, okay? As I mentioned already on the bottom, we already know what we have here. So let's get into it. The Janus 5, I'm not going to take you through the boring, the thing of the box, but the Janus 5, the box is a very nice unboxing experience. Inside, basically you have two boxes, one which brings the carrying case, the cable, and then next to it you have another box which brings the accessories for the Janus, which are the tips for obviously the tips. There's only 3 pairs, which is actually a pity. I would have liked to have seen a few more tips. And it brings a modular cable with 2 plugs. Apparently there is also the possibility to have a lightning and a USB connection, but that was not included. Only those two were included. The case is nice enough. The cable, it's a thin cable, but surprisingly it actually measured quite well, and it does the job. It's got a nice accessories. The plug itself is quite nice, and the IEMs are tiny, very small, but they've got an unusual form factor and an unusual appearance, which I think makes them different from the usual, and I appreciate. I like that boldness, let's put it that way. In terms of the fit, obviously being so small, they will be very much dependent on whatever tip you are using. Let's focus, there we go. Whatever tip you are using to hold them in place, and I actually am using the stock tips because they worked fine. They are a little bit on the soft side, and a little bit of adjustment once in a while was needed, but for the most part they actually fit quite nicely with the cable facing down. That's how I use them, and work quite nicely. I have to say, no issues there. Like I said, because the fit sometimes needed some readjustment, I'm not going to give it full marks in terms of the fit and isolation, but decent nonetheless. As for the CARAT, it's got a more traditional shape, very light IEM. I mean, for a metal shell, this is a very light IEM. Apparently it's got a DLC and a titanium, combination of DLC and titanium diaphragm. The actual shell itself reminds me very much of the CVJ May. It's very similar actually, and the fit is very nicely. I'm using again the stock tips. The case. Where is the case? There we go. That's the case there. Okay, that's the case. It's got a nice selection of tips. I'm using these ones, which are like the 08s from BGVP. I'm using those particular tips. And on the tip department, the cable, I actually don't have it here with me, but the cable is a little bit on the, I'm not going to say disappointing. I guess it does the job, but it's not, I think, the ideal match for the CARAT. As I was saying about the tips, the tips are an area where the CARAT is extremely dependent on a good choice for you to get the maximum out of the CARAT. And the one thing I will say about it is try and fit the smallest possible tip that will allow the deepest insertion, because by doing that you eliminate a peak which occurs at around 5 point something kilohertz, and it's not strong enough that it's hindering or messing up things. But I will say this much: with a small tip and holding obviously the IM in place because it was falling out, I did feel that peak was eliminated and the sound became overall improved overall. So small tip, as small as possible. If you are able to use the medium size of these ones, that would be probably the ideal. Even the small would even be better. And insert it really deep. Get it in there in your ear canal as deep as possible. And if you do that, you will be very, very surprised by how detailed the CARAT is. Okay. Let's talk a little bit then in more detail. And I'll continue now here with the CARAT. It's an IM where, when I show you the graphs in a second, you'll understand. It's an IM that when you look at the graph, you will have a perception of what the sound is like, and when you actually listen to it, you are not disappointed, or you are, I would say, surprised, because the bass is not as strong as what the graph would lead you to believe, especially when you have the comparison of the other two IMs there next to it. Without a question, the one that has, let's say, the warmest tonality is the Aria. The one that has the more clinical tonality is the CARAT. The one that has, for me at least, the perfect balance between the two is the EA500LM. On the EA500LM, I used the nozzle with the red O-ring, and I used also a nozzle which I made myself, which had a tungsten oxygen filter and a low density filter as well, a foam inserted on the actual nozzle. I used those two. But for the sake of those that do not want to use the modified or the custom made or tuned nozzle, I left it with the red nozzle, and that's how I did most of the comparison. Although personally I like using it with that tungsten oxygen filter with the low density foam as well inserted on the nozzle. And what that does for me is just lowers the energy of the higher frequencies, just that little extra to make the tonality more pleasant for me. Not that I dislike the tonality or the sound that it is as it is in stock, no, but it just makes it a little bit more pleasant for me. So as I was saying, this is very clinical. I mean, in terms of the mids, vocal presentation, upper mids and highs, really, really nice. More detailed than the Aria, at the cost of not being perhaps as tonally warm as the Aria. It's not that one is worse than the other, one is better than the other. They are polar opposites. They are complements to each other, and in that aspect, the EA500 is then the one that will probably embrace the characteristics of both these IMs the best. Plus the fact that it's also got those detachable nozzles which can be retuned. It makes for a proposition which is quite interesting. And I mean, this is about $89, this is about $80, that's about $70, just over $70. So, you know, it's not that the price difference here is big. Now, if you are a person that is not going to be playing around with the tuning, and you know that you like a more detailed presentation, you like a more clinical presentation, then the CARAT definitely is probably the one to go for. Okay, if you like doing all of those tunings and adjustments and so on, then without question the SIM-GOT. As for the Aria is the warmer version if you're not wanting to play around, if you're not wanting to mess around with the tuning. I know the Aria 2 hasn't been getting a lot of love, but I personally think it's actually quite a nice IM. This and the True 2 probably two of the nicest IMs, as well as the DSP version that they launched. Probably the nicest IMs that overall Moondrop has launched over the last couple of months. So there you have it. And so bass, it's clean, it's detailed, but not in the quantity that you would get the perception that it is. Mids are the star of the show without a question. Clean, male and female vocals are clean. Instruments in terms of their timbre and tonality come across nice. Guitars, trumpets, all wind instruments come across very nicely. I mean, a song like, for example, Love Song from Jessie J on the CARAT is very nice, very, very nice. Nothing, that can be faulted there. Although, for example, Oh from Darius, I do prefer it, for example, on the SIM-GOT, on the A500. It's just got that little extra weight on the bass that gives that song that little extra touch. Highs, I never found the highs to be on the CARAT, excessive or aggressive or anything of the sort. No, but at the extreme, or if you are not careful with what you are matching it with, and for the most part, I used their full Snowy Night. I used the Yuki, and I used as well the Color Fly, the M2. Connected up to the CARAT. With that sort of source, it sounds, I think, the best. If you go for an ESS based source, it does make the highs just a little bit more detailed, granted, but they seem like they become a little bit more edgy. Okay, in terms of its technicalities, soundstage decent, nothing to be said there. Better soundstage than, for example, the Aria. It's got very nice imaging, very nice detailed retrieval. Again, better than the Aria. Timbre and tonality is where, on a personal basis, on a personal taste preference of mine, I prefer the timbre and tonality of the Aria or the SIMGOD as opposed to that. That's just me. But again, let me just say, not that the timbre tonality is wrong. No, it isn't wrong. It's just a personal preference. So overall, I think it's actually quite a nice IM. Its biggest problem is obviously that it's got very stiff competition, very, very stiff competition. And although it's got nice accessories, it brings a nice enough case. The case is a nice case. This is afterwards Jialai, if I'm not mistaken, is kind of a sub company from NICEHCK. At least that's my understanding. If I'm wrong, I could be wrong. Correct me. It's got a nice accessories package. The cable could have been nicer. Nice tips. The build of the IM is nice. It sounds good, but it's got tough competition. So I'm not gonna say to you guys, no, go out there and buy it, because no. What I'm gonna say is that it's a solid IM. It's well tuned. It's well built. It makes sense that it's given its attention, or at least an audition before deciding. As compared to these two, I think I've said enough. The SIMGOD EA500 for me still stands as the reference, the best one. But there are a number of other very, very solid IMs. I mean, the EPZ Tipsy that came out recently as well. Very nice IM. Very, very nice IM. So keep that in mind. As for the Janus 3, the Janus 3 and the HIFI, the T5S, actually got a very similar style of tuning. The difference here is that this has got more detail past 10K, this has got less detail, and this automatically then will focus more on the sub bass, while this excuse me, has I'm not going to say a focus more on the mid bass, but it's got a snappier bass, but not as extended. The differences are not huge, but with care and with listening to certain songs, you do pick up on it and you do notice it. I mean, things like, for example, Control You from Movement, you can pick up on that. Piece of Me from Candace Springs, the tracks on my tears from Brenda Russell. You can pick up on that. Again, all these songs, I'll put it in my play on my description. You guys can then go check them out if you want. But the Janus is a very nice sounding IM. It's a very correct sounding IM. It follows like the kind of footsteps of the CARAT. And it kind of follows as well the footsteps of the EA500. So a cleaner, more detailed presentation, very technically inclined with great tonality. I mean, it is definitely an upgrade over the CARAT. Let's make that clear from the get-go. Definitely an upgrade. It's the same sort of sound, highly detailed, very, very, all the twinklies and the sparkles that you want, and very, very agreeable. It's a very easy IM to listen to. The HIFI T5S, I revisited the HIFI T5S, and I'll get back to the Janus in a second. Why? Because perhaps, and this happens, and when it happens I say it and I apologize, perhaps I didn't give it its deserved attention when I first listened to it. And for this review I started playing around with it and listening to it and trying different tips, and I will say this much: BGVP whiteboard tips on this IM, as in a few other IMs, are miraculous. The T5S with these BGVP whiteboards is just surreal. It just comes alive in a completely different manner. It's got overall a type of sound, like I said, which is similar to the Janus 3, detailed, not as detailed because it doesn't have the same extension up top detailed. But in terms of the bass, it's got a bass and a mid, the lower mids, which remind me more, for example, of the Aria 2, so warmer tonality in that aspect. So let me characterize this. CARAT, clinical, like I mentioned. This more, let's say for the sake of ease of understanding, musical. This is a good balance between the two. This has got a good balance as well of between clinical and musical, although perhaps I would give it a more tendency towards the clinical aspect. And this has got, again, a good balance between musicality and technicalities, but I would give it a tendency which is more towards the musical side of it. So these two are probably, if I was to choose between the Aria 2 and the Hi-Fi, the T5S, I would probably say I would go for the T5S. It has enough to justify the extra few dollars that it costs over the Aria. Now, if you have the Aria, should you sell it and get this? Honestly, no. I mean, you find the differences that exist are not sufficient for you to go to the trouble of selling it, losing money, and then still going and buying it. No. If you are in the process of buying one, then I think this will probably be the one that's the wisest. Going back here to the Janus. Bass, clean, detailed. It's got nice speed to it, a very nice decay. Things, it doesn't linger, very snappy. Mids are excellent, very nicely done. I would say probably the Janus, when I'm listening to all of these, I would probably say the Janus has got the best mids out of all of this, even probably slightly better mids overall than the A500M LM. And then treble, it's got just the right amount of energy and extension and cleanliness. No harshness, no sibilance, no nothing. It's a very nice IM, honestly, very, very nice. Technically then, good soundstage, good imaging, good detail retrieval, good resolution, timbre and tonality as well, excellent. So I think it's an IM that's gotten very much under the radar. Not a lot of people have been talking about it, but once again, it deserves attention. It deserves at least an audition. And I think its biggest problem really is not so much the price, but it's going to be the fit. The fit is a make or break. It either fits properly or then it doesn't fit properly. So I think that's the biggest issue there. Just to finalize here on the T5S. The T5S, now that I've listened to it thoroughly a second time, definitely whiteboard tips, without a question, and without a question as well, one of the nicest IEMs that they have done, definitely. It would have been nice if there was a little bit more extension up top, I'm not going to deny it, but it's well done. It's what it has, it's sufficient, it doesn't offend, it doesn't lack anything in terms of detail on songs or anything. So well done, seriously. The C2 was amazing. The T3 Plus in my opinion was also pretty amazing. The T3 Plus, sorry, the C3 as well, also very good. They've the T2 DLC again, very good. But then in between, or between there and then the higher up, they didn't really have anything. This definitely has done that job. So between that lower price of like up to $60 and then shooting it straight away into the planars, there was a gap there, and I think the T5S has been able to complement that gap better than the T4 Plus, for example. Although again, and let me just make that perfectly clear, I do think the T4 Plus is a good IM and solid. Okay. Now, why did I then have those there? I got those out because I wanted to kind of give an idea of what possibly a progression can be. The CARAT, the progression of the CARAT, because of its nature, because of the way it is, and on its tonality, will not be, in my opinion, the EA1000 or the Origin, but it will either be something like the BQ EYZ, the Wind, or then the Vortex. I think these are possibly the two IMs that make the most sense. Again, a focus on the mids, the upper mids and the highs, really detailed, nice bass in the sufficient quantity, the bone conduction, it's doing its thing, really, really nice. And I mean, you can get this IM, I got this particular one from Panon, $219 if I'm not mistaken. Yes, it is almost three times the price, but it is a solid IM. It is a solid IM, and I think a good upgrade if you want to continue on this line of of thought. The Vortex, basically the same thing. The Vortex has got a little bit more bass than the Wind, I would say, but it's down more to the fact that the mids and the highs are not as maybe energetic as there. And again, another IM that is a nice improvement, or a solid improvement, a solid jump from the CARAT. As for the Janus, it is one that can be upgraded, I would say, by the Vortex first, then the Origin, and I would say probably the one that I would not. Excuse me. I'm not going to say that it wouldn't be an upgrade, but it would. I think the difference would be more noticeable. Would probably be the Wind. I think that this upgrade here is a good upgrade. It makes sense, and this upgrade here as well is a good upgrade. It makes equally sense. The format, I think, well, unless you like playing around with the nozzles, I think the format might be excessively bassy if you're coming from something from like the Janus. That's my opinion. But hey, who knows? On the same token, if you go to the BQ Wind, that might sound then excessively detailed when you're coming from something like this, where that balance has been very well achieved. It's an extremely well balanced IM, the Janus 3, in my opinion. And that's it, guys. I mean, I think I've been able to show two solid offerings in their respective prices, and given the T5S a little bit of a deserved push as well, because it is, like I said, an IM that I perhaps in my first review didn't give it the love that it was that it deserved, and it is, after all, a solid IM, and it has been able to fill in that price bracket there quite nicely. You know, ultimately, this is what I've said as well many times. It's not that the overall quality of IEMs is bad in our days. It isn't. The overall quality of the majority of the IEMs is actually very decent, and they're very well tuned, and they, they've well put together. There's not dramatic differences, but it's in the finer details that will then justify them. The problem is, many times, it's either, and this is just my opinion, I think that the main determining factor between choosing one IEM or the other will be, first of all, the fit of that IEM, because, I mean, if you cannot fit an LM500 properly in your ears, it might be a really good sounding IEM, but it will sound like crap for you. And the same thing goes for any one of these ones. So fit will definitely make or break the IEM. If you can fit it properly, if you can use the correct tip, it will be amazing. If you don't, no. And in that aspect, like I mentioned, the CARAT is very sensitive. This as well, the shape of the IM can possibly be a problem, and IMs like the Format, IMs like the Origin, IMs like the Vortex, they've got a very easy fit that will please many people, or the majority of people. Same thing goes for the Aria. And then the other thing that can be very much a determining factor when price is very close are things like the accessories. Is the cable a modular cable? Isn't it a modular cable? Is it a good quality? Does it bring enough tips? Doesn't it bring enough tips? It's got a case, doesn't have a case. Because in terms of the tuning, we already know many companies have opted for this Harman style of tuning, which is kind of safe. There are the oddballs here and there, the ones that are brave enough to keep doing their own thing. The case of BQ that goes its own way. The same applies to the Vortex. So the differences are not going to be monumental, because then another aspect which is very much a determining factor is what do you have in terms of a source. So you might have a fantastic IEM here, but if you have a source which is not the best match, it's again going to make or break. For example, if you have a BQ Wind, which by nature is already very detailed IEM, I don't think an ESS based DAC is the best. That's my personal opinion. I think a Cirrus Logic or maybe even an AKM is the better choice to keep things more balanced. Okay, to keep things reasonable. Let's put it that way. The same thing again here for the EA500 LM. I would say that's the ideal. However, for example, something like the HiFi, the T5S, I would say the T5S actually does quite well with ESS DACs. It will, not all, but it will do quite well. I mean, I love that connected to my M15, beautiful. Connected to the S9 Martha from Hades as well, fantastic. Understand? And that's it, guys. I'll show you another graphs and we'll wrap it up. Hi guys, and welcome now to the graph section here for the CARAT and also for the Janus. Let me just take away all of these graphs and first start with the CARAT. Where are you? Here we go. That's it. Number 17. Okay, this is the Jialai CARAT. This is using the tip that I was mentioning, which is the stock tip, which is similar to the 08s from the GVP in the large size. This is in the medium size. Basically, it's very similar. There's a slight little drop there of that 5K area, but the small size is the one that really lowers that area and flattens it out nicely, as you can see. Okay, so if you are able to get a nice deep insertion, probably you will get something of this sort in terms of response, and you will control that 5K, just over 5K peak there, which, like I said, is not offensive, but it is noticeable. Anyway, I'm gonna leave this graph up, which is the one with the large tip. Okay, maybe for the sake of the one this will probably be the one that's the most common between everyone, and then now start putting up some of the other graphs. And as I mentioned, the CARAT, oops, my apologies, the CARAT basically is gonna have in the moondrop area one of its possible contenders. And if I put up the area here, okay, let me just make the area in a different color so it stands out a little bit more. You know, by looking at it, you think, oh, okay, they're probably going to be sounding very similar, but no. The bass on the CARAT is more relaxed, it's thinner than the bass on the Aria. The Aria does have more mid bass, and does have a warmer tonality. And then up top, although again you would think that the similarities would be very close, no, mainly because of the lack of, or the not lack of, but the thinness in the bass on the CARAT. The moondrop sounds warmer, has a warmer tonality, while the CARAT's more detailed, as compared to something like, for example, the SIMGOT, the EA500LM. You would say, oh, okay, they're going to sound exactly the same. And again, no, the LM sounds significantly more bassy, and matches that amount of bass matches very nicely than the info that you have up top in terms of its the treble and mids, upper mids, and treble. And that in essence is the Jialai. It's a kind of a harmonish type tune. You know, everything sits within a reasonable window. We're talking about there's about it's roughly 10 dBs. Okay, you could consider this somewhat of a V shape, but like I said, when you listen to it, no, it sounds more like a neutral bright than a proper than you know, a V shaped kind of signature. Okay, so that's that. Just well, now let me show you the T5. T5, where are we? T5, where are we? Here we go. Okay, so this is the graph of the T5, using that BGVP wide bore. And again, the T5 next to the 500LM, there's more of a sub-bass focus on the T5, and slightly less mid-bass impact. And then yes, definitely the mids, upper mids, and treble on the T5 are more relaxed. So I would say the the T5S and the LM are good complements to each other. So you can have a brighter, more cleaner sounding set, and then a warmer sounding set, much like the case of the CARAT as well. I mean, if I take the CARAT and I compare it here with the With T5, it's very much the same situation. You would think that the bass would be the same, but no. The T5S does have a fuller bass, but it doesn't have the details up top. Either way, the reality is this: they sound both very nice. They both have a very agreeable tuning, and especially the T5S, I was actually quite surprised how the wide bore tip can actually make it sound so much nicer than what I initially had thought. I mean, no, it's not that I didn't think the T5S didn't sound good, but it sounds better this way. As for the Janus, let's get the Janus now. This is the graph of the Janus. And straight away, the thing that you, when you look at it, you think, okay, nice, a little bit of a significant V or anything, but no, it sounds again very much like you have some vibes of the tin HiFi, like I mentioned. Let me just quickly get the graph here of the tin HiFi again. Oh, where did I put it? There we go. We have some essence of the tin HiFi here as well. The bass seems almost identical, and I guess you could say it is identical, okay? But the bass on the Janus just sounds cleaner because of the fact that the Janus has got more info up top in the upper mids and treble, and you know this is a thing. It's exactly the same situation that happens, for example, with the Hades. The Hades, okay, it was tuned to be a bass head IM with all the bass focus in the world, but it doesn't have mids and upper mids and treble that in my opinion do justice to the amount of bass there is. Thus, that bass, although enormous, it's got very low quality, and it could be it could be significantly improved if it had a little bit more energy up top, which would still make it a bass head IM, but of a significantly better quality. And this is what happens here with the Janus and the T5S. The Janus and the T5S, they both sound amazing. One sounds warmer in its overall profile, the T5S, because of that more subdued energy up top, while the Janus, being more detailed up top, gives everything a completely different energy, a completely different tonality. All right. Now, just so that you can have a little bit of an idea of what I was mentioning as well earlier, of the possible upgrades. I see the Jialai, let me get it here, I see the Jialai being something that is upgraded to something like the BQIZ, because of the, this is the natural upgrade that I would do. The BQIZ, it's difficult to explain. The BQIZ has in essence the same style of sound, just more polished in its execution. Obviously the bone conduction driver is one of the reasons for that. It just makes everything just sound a little bit more cleaner, a little bit more incisive, a little bit more detailed, but in essence, it's very similar. Clean, detailed presentation, just more polished, more detailed, all right? And the other one that I mentioned that as well could be a possible upgrade is the Vortex, which is this one here. Let me just take away here and let me just change maybe the color of the Vortex to something which can be more noticeable. Let's make it green. Again, the Vortex is got the same sort of vibe overall as the CARAT, although the bass, which seems leaner, actually does sound more present. It sounds, it is the Vortex is one of those IMs from Panon that I definitely did not get its deserved attention. Excuse me. It is a very, very nicely executed IM, and when you take it, for example, and you compare it to the likes of, like I mentioned, the format. Okay, this is the format. Let me just change the color of the format so it stands out. There we go. That's the format in black against the Vortex. The one that I'm going to put up now is the Tangent to Origin. The Origin actually does graph very similar to the to the to the Vortex in the majority of the, well, I would say they sound almost identical, to be honest. I would just give a little bit extra detail on the Vortex. The Vortex and the Origin are very, very similar sounding. Maybe because of that extra energy of the Vortex up top, you could say that the tonality of the Origin is just slightly warmer, but they are very, very equal. That's the format there. Definitely the warmest of the three. Definitely the one that's got the more, let's say, full presentation. But any one of these three is fantastic, and you know, the Wind as well. These are real, true high-end contenders. The Janus, I see the Janus as being, you know, you upgrade the. Let me get the Janus here first before I continue. Okay, that's the Origin. I mentioned that the Janus could be upgraded to something like the Origin. There we go. And you would think, but Tony, Akros, how would you say so? Because I mean, it seems like it's a lot more detail and so on. Yeah, yes, that is true. It's got a lot more detail up top and less mid bass than the Oxygen. But I actually consider the Janus to be closer, for example, to something like the Origin than closer to the format. I think the difference towards the format is more noticeable. Okay, while with the Janus not so much. Or then the other one that could also be possibly an upgrade for the Janus is the Wind. Let me take away here this. This is possibly another upgrade. You know, this loss here in the sub bass, which is really not a loss, because the Wind does have good sub bass, and as well, this area here is not as subdued as what it seems when you actually listen to it. They sound very, very equal, you know, and again, the BQRZ Wind is a possible upgrade. Anyway, guys, I hope I was able to give you a good take here on the Jialai CARAT. Solid IM, really solid IM, you know, worthwhile having a listen. As well, a good solid take on the Janus 2023 version from DDHifi, and a little touch up on the TNHifi, the T5S, which I think as well is a fantastic little IM, and I actually regret not having given it a little bit more attention when it initially came out. Okay, anyway, guys, that's it. Any questions, as always, if you have anything that you want to know or need from me, so on, just let me know, and I'll do my best to answer as quickly as possible. You take care now. Bye bye.